Hi everybody. Today we are going to install the Ventura L Brackets and the Ventura top box mount bracket. These are aftermarket options for installing the rear top box with the side panniers. So you can actually have all storage options. You may have noticed that you can't order all the options, and that is because the OEM mounts where the handles are. So you lose your side panniers. And some people have modified things to make it work with the OEM. The problem is all of the weight with the top box and the side panniers put a lot of stress on the bolts for the subframe, and it can cause them to snap. Meanwhile, these aftermarket options like the Ventura mounts one bolt to the handle mount and another mounts on the passenger foot peg. And this provides a lot of stability support for the weight in the top box that doesn't push straight down on your subframe. So we are going to install these today. You'll need several tools for this installation. You will need a socket wrench, a torque wrench, a 4mm hex socket, a 5mm hex socket, a 6mm hex socket, a 13mm socket, possibly an extension, a flathead screwdriver, small. This is going to be used to help with adjusting a washer, which you will see later in the video. And you are going to need something to cut with. You will have to modify some plastic for spacer, and you can use a file. You can use a Dremel. In my case, I didn't have those two options available, and I ended up just heating up an old tool I had that was roughly the same size and melting the plastic. But either way, you will need something for that, and that'll be all you need. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we have here. All right, so we have the Ventura. This is the top box rack, which is what your top box will actually mount to, or the top box plate. So I did not get the Ventura plate. They do sell a plate, but I did not get the plate. I've got the OEM plate. So we got the Ventura L bracket. Inside will be the instructions. The first thing we are going to start with is the L bracket. So let me go ahead and lay that out here. All right, so the L bracket consists of bracket for each side, this hardware, and the instructions. So we're going to go ahead and get started installing that. And then we will get to the top rack mount. Okay, for this install, you're going to need to remove your rear seat. You're going to have to remove your front seat, which is done with these two bolts here, and that's a size 6mm hex. Okay, next you're going to have to remove the top cover here. That is a size 4 hex socket. You have to remove the side handles. Now, the reason I removed the top cover first was just because it makes it a little easier to get these bolts by sliding it back. So it makes it get a little easier to get to these bolts for the side handles back here without messing up the paint. And the bolts in the back are a 6mm hex. Okay, and then just pull out and it slides right off. For this next step, we are removing the rear foot peg bolts. And what we're going to do is we're going to put one of these big washers that came with the kit. There's only 2 of them. We're going to put those on the front bolt. And then put the front bolt back in and not snug it. We're just going to keep it loose. And we're not putting the rear bolt in yet. This is also a 6mm hex. So we are going to take the front bolt, put one of the washers on, and put it back on. And again, we're not tightening it down. This is essentially creating a space, or the washer is acting as a spacer for where our bracket's going to come in. And the bracket's going to mount back here. And that's one of the benefits of this bracket, rather than the OEM bracket where it's all on the handles up top, is it actually puts some of the weight down here. So you don't have to worry about having your side panniers and the top box have too much weight and snap the bolts on your subframe. So let's go ahead and move over to the other side. Take out the rear bolt completely. Now, this one doesn't easily come off because your exhaust, OEM exhaust, is mounted to it. So all you have to do is just get some room behind it and slide the washer in. Remember, we're not tightening it down, we're just hand tight. Okay, so this part is the part that makes me cringe and kind of stinks. We have to get this plastic out of the way. We have to modify it. So the new bolts come down. This is the rear bolt for your handles, your grab handles. Comes down and it goes into this spacer. So a spacer has to be able to fit in here and let the bolt come through all the way. So we actually need to cut in here. Now, you can use a file, you can use a Dremel, you can use pretty much anything you think that'll work. I don't have anything on hand right now, at least that I could find. So I'm going to use an old driver here and heat it up and melt in. So hopefully that works. Be careful of the wires underneath. You don't want to cut any, melt any, anything like that. So just be careful. So I'm going to go ahead and just use a torch here. And we're going to go ahead and get our light on. Going to use a torch here, heat this up, and see what happens. Not quite. We got to make it a little wider for the spacer. And that should be good. Now once this cools down, which it has, and try and clean it up a little bit. Once I find some stuff to sand with, I'll probably clean that up a little more. but it does the trick. So now we're going to reinstall the handle here. And I am going to zoom out for you. Okay, go ahead and put your top cover on, but don't bolt it down. You're going to need it to be movable. And then what you're going to want to do is get your handlebar. Just started. Leave it loose for now, okay? So once you get the front bolt in, go ahead and slide the top part of your handlebar in. And you want to get the long bolt they gave you. And it's just regular hex head bolt and a washer. Put the washer on the bolt and start threading it in. You just want to thread it. Right now you just want to thread it till it just comes through the bottom of the handlebars. Then you're going to want to take another one of the washers they gave you. You want to get this washer and try not to lose it down inside. But you just want to get it in here. Just enough where you can bolt through it. Just like that. So now you want to tighten both the bolts down for the handle. And then you want to get your torque wrench and torque it down to 18 foot-pound or 25 Newton meters. Switch back over to the 13 millimeter socket. And then we're going to work on our L bracket. Okay, so then you're going to want to take your L bracket where this piece is pointed inward. Take your spacer, L bracket on, washer, nut. It's 13 millimeter for the nut. Now I don't want to tighten this down all the way yet. Just like that. Because we need to go up to the front and get our rear pegs mounted again. Use the same bolt that you did before, or that, was in here before, the original bolt. Tighten it up. Now, you want to torque these down. It's the same as everything else we've been working on. It is 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton meter. Make sure to do the front one. We never tightened it. Go ahead and double check. Make sure we did this one. We did. Now we're going to come back here. We're going to go ahead and tighten down this nut. The same thing. 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton meter. And this is a 13 millimeter socket. And that's it for this side. So now we're going to go ahead and get the L bracket onto the other side. So we are going to have to get this spaced out again. Cut out. Again, you can use a file, Dremel, whatever. Me, I'm just using a torch. Make sure you don't hit any wires or anything. All right, so we go and grab our handlebar. Go ahead and put your front bolt in first. Just snug. Grab the long bolt they gave you and a washer. Put the washer on the bolt. Feed it in. A 13 millimeter socket. Then Grab another washer. The fun part, of course, is getting this washer up in here. Go ahead and tighten both bolts down. 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton meters. Grab your L bracket, and you want to grab your spacer, washer, and nut. You'll have to feed it into the front foot peg thing for things to line up. Get your spacer on there, washer and nut. Go ahead and snug it up. Don't tighten it down yet, just snug it up. 13 millimeter. And then you're going to come back to your front peg or your passenger peg here and put the original bolt in. You may need to adjust. Okay, now tighten the 2 peg bolts, 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton meter. And then tighten the rear L bracket nut, 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton meter. There you go. That's it to installing the L brackets. Now we just gotta install the top plate mount. Now that you have the L bracket installed, you can go ahead and put your top bracket back on, or top cover back on. Okay, you can put your front seat on. And you can put your rear seat on. Okay, so now we're going to open the top box rack. This is not the base plate or anything for your top case. The rack, the mounting part. So you will still have to get a base plate and everything. They do sell base plate. But inside, we've got these 2 angled brackets that kind of look like check marks. Boatload of hardware and instructions. So that's what's in here. There's 4 M8x16 Allen head bolts, 2 M10x35 CSK socket head bolts, 2 M8 17x1.4 flat washers, 2 mounting legs, 2 tapered inserts, 2 base plates, 2 button head bolts, 2 M8x22x3 flat washers. I'm sorry, 4 M8x22x3 flat washers, 2 M8 nylock nuts, 2 mounting plates, and 2 extension spacers. So you want to assemble, it's designed so you can raise it up to fit your motorcycle. But you want to assemble in the lowest position. If it impedes any body work or anything, then you actually use the spacers and raise it up. Now when assembling this, you want to have your base plate. I am using the OEM Kawasaki base plate. First thing we're going to want to do, take a check mark, put this bolt through. It goes, so you'll see that this is tapered, one on each side. You want it to go through the one where the taper's on this way. Put your tapered insert in, then a washer, then a nut. Okay, you're going to want a 13 millimeter socket and a 5 millimeter hex socket. And just, you don't need to crank this down all the way yet. Just get it, somewhat tight because you're going to adjust it as needed. So keep it loose. So keep that loose. And then you're going to take the other side and put one of the tapered big bolts in. It's the one with the Loctite on the threads. And it gets threaded in to the mounting leg. And this is a size 6 hex. There's nothing to grip to, so just, you know, get it as tight as you can by hand. And then we're going to do the same exact thing on this side. Same concept. Only difference is you want it to be opposite. Okay? So go ahead and take your bolt, this doohickey, a washer, and a nut. Take your 5mm hex and your 13mm socket, tighten it down. In order to keep it loose. Go. And same thing on this side. Go ahead, feed this through. Put the leg on. Grab your 6mm hex. And there. Should look like that. So then take one of your brackets. You want it to, the long part of the bracket, you want to be towards the rear of your base plate. At least on the Kawasaki one. And just find 2 holes that line up. You're going to want to take one of these bolts, put it through a washer. Get her started. It's 6mm. Just get it, you know, started hand tight. And get the other one in there. Go ahead and tighten it down. And then do the same thing on the other side and try and match it up. You want to match it up to the same holes. Bolt and washer. Bolt and washer. Okay. So now that that's assembled, we're going to go ahead and move to the bike. So this, you're going to want to pull out your nuts and your base plate, or your legs go in here. And you want to get it, you know, see how it looks. Get it centered. And once you get to the point you like it, go ahead and snug down these. We'll go over the tightening this in a minute. Just till you got it kind of where you want it. Then grab your 13mm socket and your 5mm hex socket, and go ahead and tighten the bolts that you have loose down. Try and make sure everything's centered. Now, there are no torque specifications in the instructions, so just tighten them down good and tight. So on my Ninja 1000, I did not need to use any spacers. So the only thing left we need to talk about is fastening and locking the bolts underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the camera down, and we're going to take a look. So for these locking nuts, you want to make sure that this inside nut is all the way against the outside one. And you want to try and hit the middle of the groove. So just kind of raise and lower it while you tighten it up. And tighten the outside nut as tight as you can by hand. Do the same thing for the other side. Find the middle, tighten it by hand as tight as you can. Now, you want to go for the inside nut and use this key they gave. And that came with the L brackets, not the top plate, the L brackets. And you want to thread the inside one and then take the key and tighten it, they say, 1/8 of a turn. Do that on both sides. 1/8 of a turn. And there should be no way you can loosen it up. Now, it's not, I mean, that's secure, and I definitely keep the key in your hardware bag. If somebody really wanted to come along and just grab everything off, they could find a way to undo that. Just a pair of pliers would probably do it. So that's a drawback. The other drawback is if you have a tail tighty with these turn signal spots in it, you might have a problem with your signals. I, of course, have an integrated tail light, so I don't have them, but you may have a problem with this particular mount. That's the only negatives I see from it right now. I will, I guess, possibly do a review later. But for now, that's all that there is to installing the L brackets and the top plate, or top mount, for your base plate. So we are good to go. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I will try and answer everyone's questions as soon as possible. If there's anything you'd like to see, any tips, tricks, techniques, anything at all motorcycle related, please let me know. I do these videos for you, so anything that you would like to see, I am more than happy to do it. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell to notify you whenever a new video drops. Thank you again. Ride safe and keep the rubber side down.